Welcome, race fans, to the Irish Hills of Michigan, where the Michigan International Speedway stands proud as the proving grounds for the manufacturers' bragging rights and their racing programs. And the best manufacturer last weekend had the Chevrolet of the Smoke, Tony Stewart, on top of the leaderboard at the end of the day. Tough day for Dale Earnhardt Jr. as he got off track, but even tougher for Jeff Gordon and Sam Hornish Jr. Fortunately, after that bad wreck, they were okay, but the best guy on the day was Tony Stewart as he recorded his 7th road course victory, 5th at the Glen. Today we have a full day of racing for you on speed. Sprint Cup practice is coming your way next. Nationwide Series practice after that. Cup qualifying, and then trackside at Michigan features the young guard, Joey Logano and Justin Allgaier. Let's now send you up to the booth and join Steve Burns and company for Sprint Cup practice.
Pay no attention to those white puffy clouds above the Michigan International Speedway after the last 2 weekends where we had rain. The forecast looks fabulous. A 0% chance of rain over the next 3 days. Temperatures in the mid-80s. NASCAR Sprint Cup Series practice has just started here at the Michigan International Speedway. And hi, everybody. Steve Burns, Larry McReynolds, and Jeff Hammond, and we hope you like us because we are going to be with you for 7 of the next 8 hours. And don't say, are we there yet, until we get into trackside. So, Jeff, we come from the Watkins Glen racetrack, which is a challenging, fast road course, to this big, wide-open 2-mile sweeping oval, which everybody says is fun, right?
What's your point here? You trying to say this place is fun right now? No, Steve. What's going to happen during this practice session, folks? I believe that our gal and girl down in pit road right now, they're going to be busy listening to a lot of these drivers and crew chiefs complain about this racetrack having no grip. They're going to say, this is not the way it was in June. Even in June, the cars were free. Until you come back here in August, this place is treacherous. You're running around here at over 200 miles an hour off down in these corners, and this racetrack has got no grip at all, Larry. And everybody's thinking about, well, we got to get our race set up in because we don't have no weather this weekend. But, oh, by the way, there's a thing called qualifying.
Yeah, there's 44 cars here, so that means only 1 car will go home. And I do think we're going to see a mixed bag of what agendas these cars will be doing during this hour-and-a-half practice. Like Jeff said, I think a lot of them want to see, are we better than we were in June? Because when you look back, we had just a handful of cars that were good, but we had a lot of cars that were struggling. A lot of teams brought different packages here. I think it's important to qualify well. I know if you look at the last few races, the numbers don't show that, including Mark Martin's win in June, who started deep in the field, but you don't get a lot of cautions here normally to make your car better. Look at the June race. We only had 3 cautions. We've actually had 3 caution-free races here, so I think you want to make sure your race setup is obviously spot on, but I think you want to start near the front too.
Well, glad you're with us for this ride here at the Michigan International Speedway. Larry, go ahead and take your shoes off. Get comfortable.
I plan on it. May go down on my T-shirt.
Oh, I love it.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I didn't bargain for that now. The shoes I'm used to. The T-shirt I'm not.
Well, there's a guy right here that's not used to running up front, Kyle Busch in this 18th car. He finished 4th at Watkins Glen. That was his first top 5 finish since winning at Richmond in May.
And, of course, Kyle Busch, 13th in points. Just 2 top 10 finishes in last 10 races, as Larry was talking about. He has 9 Michigan starts with 3 top 10s. 58 points out of 12.
And here's the guy he's chasing right now, the 17 car, Matt Kenseth. He comes in here holding down that 12th position. As you've already talked about, 58 points in front of him. So for Matt, you know, he knows what the mission is. He's got to go up there. He's got to score some points. He normally runs well here. He's got to be able to pull a good one off this weekend. I mean, everybody understands that. Great racetrack for Jack Roush and this entire organization. But I'm telling you right now, there's a guy in that 18 car who's really putting a lot of pressure on him.
Matt Kenseth with two wins here for Roush Fenway Racing. As Jeff mentioned, a stellar record for Roush Fenway. 20 wins on this racetrack, 11 of those coming in Cup Series competition.
Well, and Jeff worked for Jack Roush, but Jack takes a lot of pride in this racetrack because he lives only about 45 minutes from here, and Roush Industries, that does a lot of work in a lot of areas, is only about 45 minutes from here. But back to that 18 car just quickly, and this is the wins for Roush Fenway here in all the 3 series. I think you'll see Kyle Busch in that 18 car make a long run because that's a brand new race car for him that has never seen a racetrack before.
Larry, right now looking at the our 5-lap average board, which is kind of like unusual here at Michigan to see these guys running this many laps early on. We've already got Kevin Harvick, Brian Vickers, David Reagan, Greg Biffle, and Paul Menard have already run more than 5 laps here early in this practice session. Here comes a guy that's normally fast here as far as qualifying up front. 83 car Brian Vickers has sat on the pole here a couple times.
Yeah, Brian Vickers is 10th quickest right now. He's run a total of 5 laps. And here's our points leader, the man that won at Watkins Glen last week, Tony Stewart, in that 14 car, gets his 3rd win of 2009.
Is anybody hotter than him, Steve?
Tell you what, Tony Stewart, guys, coming off a win at Watkins Glen on the road course. And that's going to go with a win.
That's his dad.
Yep. Nelson, checkered flag for Tony Stewart. That's combined with a win at Pocono, the July Daytona race, the All-Star race, which is not a points race. But, gentlemen, all he has to do here is take the green flag, and he has clinched a spot in the championship hunt.
He's already clinched. I do not like that he has to start the race and take the green flag. He's going to start the race, and he's going to take the green flag in the next 4 races, and he's already clinched. He's in. He's going to be in the chase.
Are you trying to use some common sense on that? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It works every once in a while. Just every once in a while.
It's a long day,
Yeah,
Larry.
relax.
It's
Breathe.
I can't relax.
Breathe.
It's a long day. We'll be right back to Michigan. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from Michigan is brought to you by Touch of Gray. Gets rid of some gray, never all. Early into an hour-and-a-half practice, a beautiful summer day, temperatures in the mid-80s, no threat of rain. Let's go down into the garage. We are joined by Wendy Venturini and Bob Dillner, and we start with Bob.
Well, Steve, Kyle Busch, big picture racing right now for him in the next 4 races. His goal, to make the chase. That's numero uno. Right now, he is looking at this race as a quest. They brought a brand new car here, and I asked the team, why bring a brand new car? Well, Kyle has always felt that the Roush Fenway guys, most notably Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle, with whom he is battling to get in the chase, are always better at this racetrack. So they wanted to try a brand new package. That's why they brought this brand new race car. So far out on the racetrack, he says it's killing him in the center, super duper tight. He says the car doesn't feel like it's going to bend. Right now, Kyle Busch, 58 points behind that coveted 12th spot in the chase. He said this season would be a disaster if he doesn't make the chase. Wendy?
Bob, every garage area we visit is unique in itself, and here at Michigan, they do have some tight garage stalls. Just to give you a quick look before I talk about where I'm going, this is Casey Kane and Juan Pablo's garage stalls. Casey actually has to pull in on an angle with the garage stalls being so tight here at Michigan. If we move over one, talking about Juan Pablo Montoya, he's already back on the scales. They're making a spring change. He's been a little bit too tight in that first run for Juan Pablo. Another interesting point is how far up this Juan Pablo is in points. You know, this time last year, he would have been far on the other side of the garage area here at Michigan, but this time Juan Pablo proudly in 7th in points, moving up 1 spot from Monday's race. Now, he raced here in June with a top 10 finish, his best finish at Michigan. He came home 6th. Right now, these guys are just changing from front springs in this race trim package. Not too bad for JPM. Steve?
Yeah, Wendy, they have their eyes on the prize. Brian Patty is crew chief, and Juan Pablo Montoya admitting they just want to get in that chase. Now, Sam Hornish Jr. from Defiance, Ohio. He's been loose a little bit early in this practice. Let's take a look at what happened to him, guys.
Coming off turn 2, Jeff talked about it at the top of the show, how these guys are going to be fighting rear grip, and that's absolutely zero rear grip there in the back of that 77 car.
Does he not know he's not back on the road course?
Coming off a terrible hit last week at Watkins Glen. Hard into the Armco barriers, and then Jeff Gordon drills him. Another look.
That's the one thing, Steve, I hate about tire barriers and Armco. It basically like a pinball. Thing hit that wall and he shot him right back out in front of Jeff, and everybody's talking about how sore Jeff Gordon is, how sore Sam Hornish is, but if one other guy don't want to leave out of that mix right there, the 31 car of Jeff Burton, he hit hard also.
You see Casey Kane just gets loose there, coming out of the corner, And when he hits those tires, there is just nowhere for Jeff Gordon to go. And then, as you mentioned, the 31 Jeff Burton. And what was interesting about the 31 car Jeff Burton, Friday afternoon's final Nationwide Series practice, almost the same thing happened to Jason Leffler, the 38 car. He hit that same area, bounced back out on the racetrack, and Jeff Burton was just far enough behind him that he didn't get caught up. And Jeff Burton said, when I saw the 77 hit those tires, I knew exactly what was going to happen because I had witnessed it on Friday, but he said nowhere to go. I'm not beating anybody up because we continue to find weaknesses in our sport. If you go back to Las Vegas a couple of years ago, we found out that we needed to fix that area on the back straightaway on the inside where Jeff Gordon hit so hard. I hope, as we speak, that Watkins Glen International is looking at that area and doing something about it. All that is way too close to the racetrack.
Jeff Burton, 31 starts here in the 31 car. He's never been to victory lane. He does have 2 poles and 4 top 5s, Bob Dillner.
Jeff Burton, pretty good, like you said here, Steve, at Michigan International, but right now the car is not very good for him on the racetrack. He made that one quick run, came in, and they put the car up on stands for just a second, changed some bump stop on that, or Packer stop on that front shock, because right now the car will not turn in the corner. This is the second run of the day for Jeff Burton.
And when you look at Jeff Burton in the 31 car, after finishing 30th, or actually finishing 38th at Watkins Glen after that crash, now he's 18th in the points, 335 points out. I don't think he'll be in the chase this year.
Greg Biffle had a good day at Watkins Glen. Stay with us. Tonight on Speed, tune in as 2 of NASCAR's brightest young stars, Joey Logano and Justin Allgaier, stop by for the ultimate Friday night house party. Don't miss NASCAR Trackside from Michigan. Tonight at 7, NASCAR on Speed. Be there.
Tell you what, that little 20 car right now, he's only run 1 lap, so it's obviously he's working on qualifying. But right now, Joey Logano's 2nd quickest on the board.
And the fastest right now, Ryan Newman. Newman in the 39 also has run just 1 lap, 17 minutes in to a 90-minute practice as we watch David Stremme in the 12 car.
David has 5 starts here. His best start is 20th, best finish is 19th. He actually got caught up in an accident in the June race just a couple of months ago and finished 38th.
Right now, Stremme's 16th overall. He's working on his 8th lap of practice here at Michigan International.
And you know, guys, we put so much focus on, we got somebody I think that's lost an engine or something down in turn 3 and 4.
A lot of smoke.
A lot of smoke.
I'm not so sure it isn't possibly that 9
I'm
car
pretty
of
sure it
Casey
is, Larry.
Kane.
Saw the 9 car of Casey Kane get down on the apron. Kane, a former winner here at Michigan, one of his 10 career wins.
The caution is out. They're certainly going to check the racetrack, but if it is the 9 car, whoever it is, if they have to change the engine, we know what their status will be, that qualifying will be for pit selection only, and they'll have to go to the rear of the field to start the race. There you see the 9 car just turning off into turn 3, and we know for a fact, based on miles per hour that we've seen, you're close to 200 miles an hour at the end of that back straightaway. Not the place you want to be losing an engine, but he was able to keep it under control. But that car will probably start this 400-mile race at the rear of the field on Sunday.
Casey Kane, 17th last weekend, or actually Monday at Watkins Glen. He dropped from 7th to 8th in points. And we're going to be throwing numbers at you a lot because just 4 races remain in the race to the chase. Casey Kane, 127 points ahead of Kyle Busch, who is 13th.
And Steve, you talk about that as far as the numbers game is concerned. You know, we're going to be talking about that a lot, you know, as far as, you know, what we think, what the numbers tell us, but we all understand this is racing. It's unpredictable, just like what happened to Casey Kane right there. So any of these scenarios we kind of throw out there, they could always go down to Richmond. They may not know what's going to happen, who's going to be in until the final check the flags. They turn the number 9 car around. It's like, Larry, like you were saying, they're getting ready to pull that power plant out and put a new one in.
Now, we do know that for the most part, Richard Petty Motorsports, they are running, it's in this 9 car in particular at all these racetracks, that new Dodge engine. It's only been happening for this group a little over 2 months. And Steve, when you look at the last 10 races for them, they've only had 1 finish outside the top 15, and that's when they finished 21st here in the June race. So a good run of races during the summer for the 9.
including a win at the Infineon Raceway. Wendy?
Well, Steve, Casey Kane is just pulling off his helmet. Very quiet and calm on the radio. He said, I'm coming to you guys. And they came back over and said, did you just blow up? And of course, yes, it is the 9 of Casey Kane, who is now in the garage area. They are still trying to assess the problem of exactly what went wrong with this engine. And once they figure that out, of course, it's going to take a little bit of time for the 9 car to take this engine out, put the backup in, and they are going to lose part of this hour-and-a-half practice session that we have. But thankfully, it's the first practice session on Friday. If it's going to go, this might be the best time of the weekend if it were to happen right now, as Casey Kane climbs out of that car.
Yeah, Wendy, I have to agree with you right now. If you're going to have a problem, now would be the time to have it. Go ahead and get it changed out and get yourself kind of focused out for, I think they possibly get it changed maybe and get back out. You see the engine sitting right in the back of the truck. They're ready to go.
New bullet. Yep, looks like they were working on race run, Steve, because they'd run 6 laps and they were working on 7.
That was a stump puller. And back at the Michigan International Speedway, back underway. Caution came out briefly when Casey Kane lost a power plant, and Casey standing by with Wendy.
Thanks, Steven. Usually when the engine goes first thing in that practice session, it sometimes is that mechanical failure. But Casey, the way you were moving your hands, it looks like you were giving some feedback to the team of what you were feeling in the car before the engine went. What was it?
Well, I had like 4 laps there before it broke, and we were just talking about the change we made to the car, but the engine itself broke pretty big. I don't know, we haven't had any failures this year, so that was, the guys have done a good job there. We'll just see if we can get the other engine in, hopefully make a qualifying lap, but I doubt we will get any practice. We'll probably just make a lap later this afternoon.
Are you headed to Knoxville this weekend?
Tomorrow, not tonight. I'm not messing with it anymore. I've been there all week and had a blast out there, so I'm gonna go back tomorrow where cars are pretty fast.
All right, cool. Casey Kane, of course, most of these drivers that are into that seat, we know they're headed to Knoxville tomorrow night, and that will be live on Speed.
That's Knoxville, Iowa.
Yes, not Tennessee.
The Knoxville Nationals.
You know, to support what Casey said, now they have had some engine issues this year. They had some problems at Talladega in practice, but to support what he's saying, 4 Richard Petty Motorsports cars, 22 races into 2009, they have no DNFs. All 4 of their cars have been running at the end of every single event. The only other operation that can claim that is Stewart-Haas Racing.
Yeah, that's a 2-car operation. Their stretch of consecutive finishes like that goes all the way back to October of last year at Martinsville, I understand.
Steve, Jeff, I love what's on the hood of this 07 car of Casey Mears. What it says on there is Jack salutes the American auto worker. A car owner Richard Childress and Jack Daniels, especially since we're racing so close to Motor City, Detroit, they wanted to do something this week with the race car and all of their show cars to recognize all of the American auto workers across the country. I think that's so cool they are doing that.
You know, we really haven't touched a lot about that when we come to Michigan each time. Being this close to Detroit, obviously, all the big 3 manufacturers, Dodge, Chevrolet, and Ford, you know, they have a big following here. It's a matter of pride. So, you know, we don't want to overlook the fact of the struggles they've had as far as Detroit's concerned. But they've been battling back. Ford, Chevrolet getting back on their feet. It looks like, you know, in time, it looks like Dodge will be able to turn things around. So, you know, our hats are off to the fact that the resiliency of the American auto worker and all those manufacturers. And I don't want to leave Toyota out because they've been working, doing their thing. But here in Detroit, they're the big 3.
Have you turned in your clunkers yet? Cash for clunkers?
No, mine's still running. And at 32 miles a gallon, I'm going to drive that bad boy a little bit further. I might look like a vacuum cleaner salesman, but I'm still going where I need to go economically.
Jeff Hammond and I have reached the age we're not trying to impress
Nope.
the soul.
Nope. I'm right there with you.
Jeff Gordon right now, this 24 car, 5th quickest. Looks like they may be, as they do on most Friday practice sessions, that they're working on qualifying setups. He's only run 1 lap. You know, I couldn't help but really pay close attention to Jeff Gordon's interview after that hard crash that we saw at Watkins Glen. You could tell it definitely knocked the wind out of his sail, but the one thing he mentioned, this racetrack here is easy to run. 2 miles, 400 miles, but he did mention Bristol is in about a week and a half from when he had this crash, and he knows that's where it could really take a toll on all of the back problems he's been facing.
But you know, the good thing about Jeff's situation, yeah, Bristol's going to be tough, but at least the week after that, we do have a weekend off. Final weekend of the year. They'll get a chance to rest up. Then we go to Atlanta, which is a racetrack somewhat similar to this. So maybe he can get through Bristol and get a chance to kind of get rested up and get going for the rest of the year. And guys, here's one of our guests tonight on trackside, Joey Logano, 20 car. Larry, you've already talked about it. Got himself a fast little hot rod right now, second quickest out there on the racetrack. And it looks like, Bob, this is his second attempt or second time out to see exactly what this car can do.
Yeah, definitely. And in qualifying trim, Jeff, Greg Zipadelli wanted to start in qualifying trim for Joey Logano because they feel it is so important here with the track position. Even though this is a multi-groove racetrack, they didn't have a very, very good qualifying effort. He felt like the car was very good in race type trim last time here, so they are going to concentrate on that type of situation for qualifying a little bit later on today. So they are really looking forward to a good qualifying run. Joey now 19th in points. He keeps on getting better and better, guys, but it's really tricky on this qualifying trim sometimes, and that's what Joey is struggling with, so that's why they're doing this.
Well, I think you're seeing a veteran crew chief trying to get this young driver kind of brought up to speed, get him used to this kind of a situation, Bob. But the key thing I think right now is what Joey said about coming back here. You know, he said after going to Pocono for the second time, he realized how much he learned the first time. So he really was looking forward to going back to some of these tracks the second time. And it looks like coming back here to Michigan, this experience and having seat time here has given him the kind of confidence you really like to see in a young driver.
There's the man that went to victory lane the last time we were here, Mark Martin, in that 5 car. Right now, Mark is 6th quickest, right behind his teammate, Jeff Gordon. And we were talking about qualifying. Mark qualified back in the 32nd position. But the big thing is he drives by Greg Biffle. He had enough fuel to make it to the end when his teammate Jimmy Johnson, Greg Biffle, did not.
Jimmy Johnson led over 150 laps on that day, but it was the veteran Mark Martin pulling into victory lane, one of his 4 wins of 2009.
That's what happens when you get to big picture racing like they were. They knew what they had to do, score points, and in turn, they scored a win.
Ryan Newman still the quickest here, 28 minutes into a 90-minute practice. Scene Daily and SpeedTV.com have teamed up to form the most powerful online news source in NASCAR. Visit SpeedTV.com now for in-depth analysis, breaking news, and much, much more. Breaking news here at Michigan International is that Ryan Newman is still the quickest. He's run just 1 lap of practice.
Got Joey Logano that's 2nd, the fastest Ford right now is the Roush Fenway Ford of Carl Edwards, the 99 car. Here's Matt Kenseth in the 17 car. He's 26th quickest. He's run a total of 7 laps.
You know, Jeff Hammond has never given me a clear answer about Roush Fenway Racing here. He used to work for Jack Roush.
Right.
My question has always been, Jeff, why are the Roush cars so good here? We saw the graphic, 20 wins, 11 in the Cup Series. I don't feel like you're being forthcoming. I feel like you're holding back.
I'll make it as simple as I possibly can. The guys who work there and drive for Jack Roush win here because they want to keep their jobs. It's like working for Junior Johnson and Flossie back in that day in North Wilkesboro. That was our home racetrack, and you better show up and run good. Otherwise, you know, they have got jobs at the chicken plant, or they got them somewhere else besides that. But I think the effort they put forward here is the big difference right there. They make an extra effort here.
Bob Dillner, what's going on with our winner here in June, Mark Martin?
Well, Mark Martin's a very happy guy right now. You can see him inside the garage area. He's climbed out of that car, and the car that he is using here at Michigan is the same car that he and Alan Gustafson won with when we were here back in June. So a lot of confidence for this team. But here's what's very interesting. Mark said the car is a little rough. It's running well. It's a little tight. But he said, guys, I am having fun. And you know what that means, guys. When Mark Martin is having fun, look out the rest of the competition.
And you think about it, Mark Martin has 4 wins here, and 3 of those was driving for Roush Fenway. I actually have a little bit of a theory on your question, Steve, but it's not necessarily about Roush Fenway. It's about the Ford camp in general. I just think there was a point in time where the Ford engine combination had their arms around this 2-mile racetrack. When you look at the August race from 1990 all the way to the June race of 1999, 18 races. Ford won all but 5 of those races. And yeah, Roush Fenway was a big part of that, But the Wood brothers, they have 11 wins here in a Ford Mercury product. Harry Melling has 7 wins here. Robert Yates has 6 to 7 wins here. And there's Bill Elliott, a guy that pretty much owned this racetrack driving for Harry Melling. So yeah, Roush Fenway, they have a lot of wins here with the 3 different series, but I think there was that period of time, especially in the early mid-90s, that Ford's engines just complemented this 2-mile racetrack.
You know, and they had that cheater engine.
What?
Cheater engine?
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
We just had a
controversial.
lot of horsepower over there
Very
with Robert Yates.
controversial.
It would take a push right out coming off turn 4.
Yes, it would.
You've never had to try to outrun those guys up here, Steve. You understand what I'm talking about. The one time that we were able to steal a victory from them was 1985. We went caution-free here. We beat Bill Elliott because he had all that horsepower. He had to stop extra for gas. I had a little more than he did in an 11 car with Darrell. Can you imagine that?
I don't remember who the competitor was, but back in the early 90s, we did win a lot of races here with Davey Allison. One of the competitors said, I can beat Davey Allison, I can beat Larry McReynolds, I just can't beat Robert Yates.
Best handling race cars you ever seen are down the straightaway, aren't they, Larry?
I heard Ernie Irvin on Sirius Satellite Radio yesterday, Larry, and he talked about how fun it was to drive those cars at Yates with all that horsepower.
It made life easy. You just had to get them pointed in the right direction, that's for sure. And you know, looking at David Reagan here in the 6 car, he's doing double duty this weekend. One thing I was going to make a point, right now David's actually 8th quickest, but I was going to make a point when Casey King lost the engines. All of our focus and all of our dialogue evolves around who's going to make the chase, and I'm sure we'll get into the chase, and it's going to be about who's going to win the championship. But let's talk about all of the other things that are going on with a lot of other race teams. Let's face it, you've got the fight to get in the top 35. We know that Red Bull car, Scott Speed, they're trying to get there. But just think about the teams that's fighting, or the drivers maybe that's fighting for a ride for 2010. Where's David Reagan going to be? Is he going to still be at Roush Fenway? Casey Mears, Jamie McMurray. So there's a lot of agendas. Yeah, we'll be talking about championship, but there's a lot of agendas when you think about it in these last 14 races before this year ends.
Back to the garage and Bob Dillner.
And just to add on that, guys, remember 1 year ago, David Reagan was almost battling to get in the chase. He said this year has been completely disappointing for him, Jimmy Fenning, and all those guys. In fact, we are told here in the garage area that if things don't improve soon for this 6 car, there may be a little bit of shake-up there, not on the driver's side, but maybe on the team side to try to spur them through the final races of this season because, guys, this season has been disastrous for that 6 team. David Reagan knows it, and he doesn't want to run this way, so that's why he's been so disappointed here throughout the entire season.
We know, in all fairness to that number 6 team, I know they struggled, but the overall picture from Roush Racing has not been that bright. Neither for Ford either. I mean, I know they started off the year really good, but they haven't been as strong as they were a year ago.
We need to talk about that for a minute. The modified cars at Bristol. That'll be a show right there.
And you know what? Ryan Newman is going to race in all 4 races at Bristol. He's going to do the double duty. He's going to do the modifieds and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series on Wednesday. And then he'll migrate, take a day off, Friday night Nationwide Series, Saturday night Cup Series.
Get you some of that, as I like to say.
That's a doubleheader right there, my friend.
Hey, you can race anything at Bristol.
Modified,
sprint
Camping World
cars,
Truck Series.
It don't matter. You can race anything there.
But when I look at that NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, my biggest question, how many more races can Ron Hornaday and Rick Finn and that group of Kevin Harvick Incorporated win in a row?
It's 5 in a row right now.
They are on it.
Carl Edwards, another Roush Fenway driver, celebrating the 5th anniversary of his first start in NASCAR Sprint Cup racing. He said, I can't believe it's been 5 years. Carl just turned 30 years old and coming off a fabulous 2008 season, trying to stay alive here in the championship. He's in good position right now in points, but Larry wants to win that first race of 2009.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think anybody can hardly believe that this group has not won a race in 2009. And I was going to make this point, spinning off of what Jeff was talking about before we went to break, and this guy was getting down to 1, counting backwards in my ear. But what I wanted to say, I don't think anybody would have believed that, yeah, Roush Fenway came out of the box and won the first 2 races, the Daytona 500 and Auto Club Speedway with Kenseth. They've been shut out in the Sprint Cup Series since then. And what's amazing, we know, like Jeff said, Roush Fenway they're down a little bit, but the amazing thing, they're sitting there with 3 cars in the top 12. Yeah, 2 are just barely in there, but they do have 3 in the top 12 right now.
Kurt Busch comfortably inside the top 12 as well. He is 4th right now. Wendy has an update on that 2 car.
Thanks, Steve. I love this first practice session when we get to the racetracks because the drivers are so descriptive with their terminology to the crew chiefs. Kurt Busch climbed out of the car talking to Pat Trison right now. They are a little bit too soft on that right front spring. It's tight when he tries to apply that throttle through the center. Now, the package they used in the spring didn't have as much grip, so they came to the Speedway today with a little bit different package, and on this last run, Kurt Busch told Pat Trison the front grip quality is up from what we had in the spring, so that's a good sign for Kurt Busch. Now, this change right now, they're switching over to qualifying trim, but in race trim, it's too tight from the center out. Also, I wanted to note they had the fuel pressure gauge was bumping around in that second run out there for the 2 car, so that's going to be something we watch in the practice session. If it continues to go wrong, they may have to fix something. Bob?
Martin Truex Jr. started out in qualifying trim. Right now he's 3rd quick, so are you super happy with your car?
No. Are we ever?
No, probably not. How come?
Just too tight right now. The speeds will get better. The place is strange where we practice, you unload and you'll be fast and you'll lose a lot of speed, and then when qualifying time comes around, for some reason the track picks up again. You know, even if the weather is fairly similar. So right now we're just kind of going back through our notes and kind of looking at the trend of the day and trying to better on that. So too tight still right now, and you know, we'll just keep working on it and see what happens.
All right, Martin Truex Jr. fast so far. They are going to try another qualifying run here with a completely different setup. But guys, what these guys down in the garage area are talking about is how different the track is this time around since the last time we were here in June.
Bob, we were here just 8 weeks ago, and you know, you wouldn't think the track would be that much different, but it is.
And that's not abnormal. That has not changed with this car, the old car, or the car we ran in the 60s and 70s.
You raced here in the 60s?
I did. I started racing here in the late 70s with the old car, but the hot summer sun has laid on this racetrack in those 8 weeks since we were here in June, and the racetrack has just lost even more grip than what we had in June. There's one of the cars we talked about a while ago, Scott Speed in that 82 car. Right now, Scott is only 41st quickest of the 44 cars, but this is a car that will fight and claw. Jimmy Ellings and that group trying to get in the top 35 by the time the checkered flag waves at Homestead, because like I was talking to Jimmy last week at Watkins Glen, if you can accomplish that, that means you're locked into the first 5 races of 2010, including that 2010 Daytona 500.
And Larry, you're talking about the racetrack and how hot it is. You can see almost like seams around the racetrack where they've had to go back and had to patch and keep the cracks from opening up. They use a product called Craftco on these seams, and undoubtedly, you know, it works really well because the guys are not complaining about the car being too wormy or too loose right now. But again, the racetrack has lost a ton of grip in just 8 weeks. And the thing about it is, Steve, like Larry's saying, we've seen it coming here on a Friday and be kind of cloudy and cool. And this racetrack, I mean, drivers love it. I mean, they're just running off in there wide open, getting to the bottom of the racetrack, come back in on Saturday morning, racetrack heats up about 15 or 20 degrees, and they'll look at you and swear up and down that you've got all 4 springs and backwards on this race car, because it will not feel the same as it did on Friday.
There you see Juan Pablo Montoya in the 42 car right now. He's 7th quickest, and we know this is a guy that come race day, he'll be running that high groove. And the observation I made in June is the guys that were running the high groove, even though you beat them through the corner, because of the gear that they run here, and it's a 375 gear, that's the lowest gear you can run, those guys, especially off turn 2 when they would run the high groove, they just could keep their car wound up, and it would take you a dozen laps to get by them, even though you beat them through the corner. But talking about those seams, Jeff, Kevin Harvick was talking about the different grooves here, and he said, you know, you almost sometimes can use the apron if your car's too tight to make your car to turn, clip the apron. But he said down in turn 1 and 2, those seams, if you'll hit those seams just right, it'll almost make your car turn. And then, of course, if you're loose, that's a lot of times when we see the guys go up the racetrack running the high groove.
Juan Pablo Montoya has finished 15th or better in his last 9 races. Is that your 375 gear, Larry?
That might be, or they may be trying a little higher gear for qualifying, maybe a 7.
Sunday, NASCAR race day marches into Michigan. Tune in as Kenny and Jimmy tell you which drivers will make the chase cut and who will be left out in the cold. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot. Live coverage begins Sunday at 11 Eastern here on Speed. 46 minutes. We're halfway into this 90-minute practice here at Michigan International. Teammates David Stremme and Sam Hornish Jr. talking here in the garage area. You see Jeff Gordon in off the racetrack headed to the attention of Steve Letarte. Let's take a look at our point standings. Just 4 races left in the race to the chase. So we said Tony Stewart will clinch here Sunday when he starts the race. Jimmy Johnson also has an opportunity to clinch on Sunday as well.
I think we need to explain our little colored chiclets over there. If you see Tony Stewart in green, the most points you can gain or lose in one race, assuming you start the race, and we know all 12 of these guys are going to start these next 4 races, is 161 points. So right now with 4 to go, the magic number is 644. If you're 644 points in front of 13, you're locked in. That's the reason Tony Stewart's locked in. The reason we have Jimmy Johnson half and half, if you leave here 483 points in front of 13th, you're locked in. If you look at Gordon, Busch, Hamlin, and Edwards, they have 1 race to play with, but where it gets tight is 7th through 12th. There are less than 1 race in front of 13th place Kyle Busch.
Just like when you watch the baseball playoffs. What's the magic number? We're working on the magic number, folks, to give you an idea of what to expect, who's going to get locked in and win. And for the guys that get locked in, Steve, what I like about it, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, they know what they want to do, get some bonus points. So they can make it and run through the gamble. I mean, they can chance, stretching fuel or 2 tires or something. So they get a little bit more of I think, an opportunity to experiment and try some things because they are locked in.
Because after the race at Richmond, everybody gets 5,000 points and then 10 points per win. So, as you said, Jeff, Tony Stewart, Jimmy Johnson, they're going to gamble and go for a win.
So right quick, the guys in red, they better keep their nose down and keep digging.
Yeah, right now, the way the seeding would be, Mark Martin is actually the points leader, but there's 40 more bonus points available.
To the garage and Bob Dillner.
Well, Sam Hornish was paying attention to your explanation and the points there as you guys were talking, but 18th quick so far for Sam. But Sam, last we left you a tough hit at Watkins Glen. I got a chance to talk to you afterwards. We all want to know how you're doing.
I'm doing okay. I mean, it was definitely not the kind of day that we wanted to have out there, but all in all, the car held up well, and the worst part about the whole deal is that the 5 guys that are ahead of us in points all had problems, and we're looking just to get to the end of the race and make sure that we get a good point stay and try to get ourselves up there in the top 20, and you get taken out. So tough day for us, but we'll always look forward to coming to Michigan. Home track for me, and car's been pretty good so far. So the qualifying trim, hopefully we'll get out there and get a good top 10 starting spot.
We've been looking at that wreck there coming around that turn there, and Casey running you off a little bit, and it just kind of hurts when you take a look at it. But let's talk about here instead. 18th quick. Just saw you talking to your teammate David Stremme. What were you guys chatting about?
Just talking about the car. We both started out in race trim and trying to figure out what the car is going to need for Sunday a little bit more than what it's going to need for today. So just really trying to figure out the changes that they made versus what we did, and seeing what might work together. We're kind of started out with a different setup. He kind of came back more towards where we were at last time we were here, and we took some stuff that we'd ran earlier on in the year, places like Texas and Las Vegas. So we're just trying some different things, trying to make the whole team better.
Sam, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, guys, talking to Sam Hornish Jr. last weekend at Watkins Glen. Chris Economaki always told me from National Speed Sport News, tell it like it is. And I tell you, when I got a chance to talk to him after that wreck, man, it looked like his eyes were bugging out of his head. That was a tough hit.
It was that's for sure.
Well, Ryan Newman's still the quickest. He now has 3 laps of practice here at Michigan International. Stay with us here on Speed. All 44 teams have been on the racetrack here at Michigan International Speedway. Glad you're with us here on Speed. Qualifying later on this afternoon at 3:40 Eastern. Ryan Newman, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr. the quickest. Timing and scoring right now showing the 43 car of Reed Sorensen just 41st overall. Sorensen working on his 15th, 16th lap of practice.
I think we've got about 35 minutes to go in this practice, and this is about the time you heard Wendy talking about Kurt Busch, Pat Trice, and the 2 cars swapping over. If these guys were in race trim, which we know a lot of them were, this is about the time I think they'll start flipping over to qualifying trim, and I think you'll really start to see the top 10 or 12 move around. You know, Jeff and I were talking during break as we look at Mike Bliss in the 09 car. I went to Mike Bliss this morning myself, and I didn't really get an answer I was looking for. So I want to go to James Finch or Mark Reno, their owner and crew chief, because Mike was basically relieved of his driving duties in James Finch's #1 Nationwide Series car, but now he's here this weekend in the Cup car for James Finch. But
I don't get it.
I don't either. But what I was going to say is Jeff and I were looking at the score monitor. I think Brian Vickers may indeed have about the fastest race car here. I know he's 10th quickest, but it appears that that 83 car is 10th quickest making race runs, not qualifying runs. And I tell you, David Reagan looks awfully good too, because he's run a total 10 laps in that 6 car, and he's right up there in the top 10.
Right now we're looking at his teammate Carl Edwards, but you know, again, we'll go back and talk about this is a racetrack where Roush Fenway and Roush Yates engines are going to put their best foot forward for all their, you know, the forwards here. Right now we got Carl Edwards and David Reagan along with Bill Elliott. They're all up there in the top 20, and just outside is Biffle and McMurray. So I think you're going to see these guys right now, you know, making that kind of an effort to try to make a good, solid showing this weekend. They got a lot of pressure on them. Talking about pressure, here's a young man right now that's trying to make something happen, A.J. Allmendinger. But he's 33rd right now in his practice session, and I think he's making long runs too, because earlier, he gets a little slide into that corner a little bit. He was running up against the top of the racetrack in a previous outing. I was watching him, I was sitting there thinking, so now he's definitely not making qualifying runs, and he ran about 5 laps right up there around the outside wall.
You know, we saw his teammate Reed Sorensen just a second ago. This will be the 2nd week that these 2 teams will be working with the crew chief and team swap. Now Sammy Johns and that group from the 44 teams working with Reed Sorensen, and Mike Shiplett and that group is working with A.J. Allmendinger, who Jeff Hammond just pointed out to me on the scoring monitor, jumped up to 22nd quickest. But Bob Dillmer, at least for now, Junior Nation will be happy to hear that he's 9th quickest on the board.
Yeah, and he is in qualifying trim, Larry Mack, so we expected Junior to be fairly quick, but he has been struggling with this car just a little bit. It started out really loose for him. They made some changes. It got really significantly tight. Plus, he's been a little bit uncomfortable inside that car. He keeps on radioing to the crew while he's during his run, saying, hey, we really got to adjust the belt. So they just came back in. They're trying another setup on this race car, still in qualifying trim. During this practice session, they adjusted the belts, trying to get Junior more comfortable, but this is that car that Lance McGrew, his crew chief, actually built specifically for him, and it's the same car that he ran so well with until late in the race at Indy. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. hoping to have a good run here at Michigan. He's a former winner here.
His last win came at Michigan. Bob has been 43 races in between wins and making his 350th start here at Michigan. Well, you know, Tony Stewart really hasn't been that fast in this practice, Wendy. He's got 12 laps on the board, but his quickest lap, good enough for just 37th.
Yeah, but don't be fooled by Tony Stewart. I think he has some tricks up his sleeve. I just chatted with him and Darian Grubb, the crew chief. They feel pretty good about this race car. They didn't seem concerned by what the practice chart is showing. They are switching the car over to qualifying trim right now. Smoke did say that it's getting warmer out there, and that grip is changing, of course. Now, Tony has the most top 10s out of anyone this season, 18 of them. One of them came here in June when he finished 7th. He has one former win at Michigan, hoping to keep that championship hopes alive. This week I sat down with Darian Grubb and Bobby Hutchins at Stewart Haas Racing, and you'll see that interview on Sunday on NASCAR Race Day with The Real Deal. So I spent quite a bit of time in their shop this weekend, and these guys are definitely riding the momentum right now, but they by no means think that the championship is in their bag, so to speak. So they know they got to keep working hard. Once this chase starts, they still have a lot of work to do.
Well, I don't know about you. We're talking about work getting done. We're looking now at the 9 car of Casey Kane. We talked about him early on. He lost an engine early in this practice session, and they've been working on it. And guys, they don't look to me like they're in a really big hurry. So I don't think they're going to make it back out to get any kind of qualifying runs, and I don't think they can get this thing hooked back up and ready to go in 30 minutes. You, Larry?
It's going to be quite a chore considering they got 30 minutes to get that thing back out on the racetrack.
Watch Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jeff, Bob was talking about getting Junior comfortable in the car. Who's the first driver to talk about driver comfort?
PW?
That's him.
And it's Big Block Thursday. That's right, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Rev up your night with Big Block Thursday on Speed. First, it starts with Pink's All Out. It heats up your night at the Heartland and Indy. Then at 9 o'clock, the Wolfpack, well, they're going to be chasing after some wanted drug dealers on Jack, then wrecked. At 10, Bad Luck kind of strikes the O'Hare group as they're having a panic mode. Big Block Thursday on Thursday night on Speed. And guys, I was watching it last night. I'm very impressed with Jack. I like the way this Wolfpack goes out. Look for guys who've been stealing cars. Catch them and catch them in the act. I mean, they are really working it. They had some pretty intense moments there.
Good read, Jeff Hammond.
That was a great read, and you may have been impressed with Jack. I'm just not sure that Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson are impressed with this 48 car right now. Let's see what this run gives them, because right now they're 13th quickest, and it looks like that they have been practicing qualifying runs, because he's only run a total of 5 laps with this car. This is the same car that they led so many laps with in June and ended up running out of fuel coming off turn 4, coming to the white flag.
Jimmy has wins in 2009 at Martinsville, Dover, and Indianapolis, but take a look at the tracks where Jimmy is winless of the 22 that we visit.
I'm still going to stick to my theory about those 6 tracks right there. We talked about this a few weeks ago. If you see the 2 road courses involved, if you look at 5 of those 6 tracks, I'll ask the question again to you guys and see if you remember. 5 of those 6 tracks, what do they have in common?
They're outside of the chase.
They're outside of the chase. The only track that's inside the chase that was on that list is Homestead Miami Speedway. The last 3 years, when they got to Homestead Miami Speedway, they could care less about winning the race. They were just trying to protect a points championship lead.
I see where you're going.
These guys race when they need to race, and they test when they should be testing. You know what you're trying to say, Larry?
That's exactly what I'm saying, and that guy right there is the reason.
He's making his notes for NASCAR performance. He's not paying attention to
Well, he better be making them, because you get to see us twice this weekend, 6 p.m. Saturday night Eastern Time, and again, about your 3rd cup of coffee, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning. We're going to take a little field trip this week.
A field trip?
Hey, you know what? I think you're trying to get in on some of Wendy Venturini's turf by doing field trips.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they, Wendy? They're trying to cut in on some of your time.
Hey, you guys can come join me on a field trip anytime for those shoots. I'd love to do that. Now, talking about Jack Knaus, we just saw him sitting on top of the hauler. Nice and lonely up there, but he is busy at work. That brain, do you see smoke coming out of that scanner radio? Because his brain is working right now. He's listening to feedback from Jimmy. Now, what Chad is saying, being the cheerleader that he is, very simply, good job, really good job to Jimmy. There was concern when a car went around Jimmy coming through the garage area. Chad just kind of casually shook his head at the fact somebody was right around them and put them in a dangerous situation. Jimmy Johnson has just pulled back into the garage area. They seem decently happy with this car so far, if there is such a thing. Bob?
I don't know if there is such a thing, but the same can be said for Kyle Busch right now. That brand new race car still not agreeing with the racetrack. 25th quick on the track right now, and that was a mock qualifying run. So Kyle Busch says the front end of this car, we gotta get it just a little bit better. It's turning better and better with each change that they have tried, but so far, not exactly to Kyle's liking. Now, guys, I got a question for you up in the booth. A lot of people that are going out now as the temperature changes here, all of the mock qualifying runs are a heck of a lot slower than the guys that ran qualifying type runs at the beginning of this session. So how do you compare where you're at? Like Kyle Busch, 25th quick right now. Well, the guys that went out earlier are a heck of a lot quicker. So where does he stand?
You've got to be smart enough right now, Bob, not to overreact. Speaking of overreacting, I've never seen a pair of tennis shoes that were high heels. It's kind of got me a little bit sideways.
I don't think it's the high heels that's got him shook up.
Juggling, struggling,
when you come back,
making big deals, dancing backwards in high heels.
You're starting to sound like Darrell Waltrip.
And glad you're back with us. We are 1 hour, 7 minutes into a 90-minute practice. 37 car driven by Tony Raines. He is the slowest right now of the 44 drivers who've been on the racetrack.
Yeah, he's the only car that is outside at least the 38 or the 39-second bracket. His fast time is a 40.06. Mike Skinner, who is a go homer, is right in front of him at a 39.93. Mike's in that 36 car of Tommy Baldwin's this weekend.
Steve, I want to go back to something we were discussing before we got sidetracked by the tennis shoes.
Yep.
This racetrack, as they lay rubber down, as it gets hot, it will slow down. You know, when you first get on this racetrack, I mean, nobody else had been on this racetrack until they went out earlier. And this racetrack is notorious for having a little bit more grip early on. But again, when it starts heating up, it starts slowing down. So you have to be smart enough to understand kind of like what your car has been doing, what your driver's telling you, and kind of overlooking guys like Ryan Newman. I mean, that's a great time that he put down. And the main thing about it is can he repeat it? Right now, he is almost, you know, a second off what he's practicing at right now. It's how much slower he's gotten. So the racetrack itself will give you a lot of, I want to call it almost like false reads about how much speed it's got in it. And you just got to kind of like look through and realize who's running right now, what you're doing, and kind of like how you stack up. And we take a look at the guy who finished. I mean, he had a great weekend at the Glen. Marcus Ambrose won on Saturday and backed that up with, again, equaling his best Sprint Cup finish of second on Sunday. I mean, it was a great effort by him and Frankie Kerr. So I'm just looking for more things to come from him. And this guy is probably one of the guys that can surprise you and get to victory lane at about any place we go.
It's Frankie Kerr, crew chief. Let's go to Bob.
Problem is for this team right now, they know that this is the type of track that they have to get much, much better on. Marcos Ambrose says right now he just can't cut the wheel in the middle of the corner. That's the problem for the 47 bunch, and that's what Frankie Kerr and the boys will be working on.
Yeah, Bob, I talked to Frank Kerr this morning, and he said they were so bad here in the June race. They qualified 33rd, finished 31st, and he said they were like loose, almost unloading the car out of the trailer. That's how loose that car was. So they brought, a lot like the 18 car, they brought a brand new car here going a completely different direction in the approach of this racetrack.
Guess what they were doing last night? Frankie Kerr along with Marcus Ambrose.
They were doing a little dirt racing.
A little dirt racing. They were running sprint cars over at a local racetrack. And what got me about a lot of the crew down there, we're talking about Frankie, he said he had about 300 or 400 people show up just to see Frankie Kerr, not to see Marcus Ambrose, because Frankie Kerr, he's a legend up here as far as dirt racing is concerned in this area.
You know, we were talking about Brian Vickers a while ago in this 83 car, and I've actually gathered a little bit of information courtesy of our Randy Pemberton. What Randy texted me and said is, we were talking about how quick Brian was earlier, that he went out and, yeah, he was making race runs. And then he made a mock qualifying run on the same tires. And that right there, I think, was a actual sure enough sticker run. That's the fastest lap he's run, but he's only 13th quickest. I think that supports what we're seeing. The racetrack is slower. Steve, Jeff, I think that's where qualifying draw is going to be so important, because I think the later you go, the better off you're going to be. And we've got guys like Kurt Busch, Jeff Gordon, Carl Edwards going early. And guess who the last two cars to go as far as the top 35? Brian Vickers and Ryan Newman.
Did Randy Twitter you or text you?
I have no idea what the difference is.
You got the message though, right? You got the message.
Ryan Newman not at full speed right now, folks, but he is still the fastest. His Chevrolet, 189 plus miles per hour. You take a look at his crew chief, Tony Gibson.
I think it's safe to say right now, with how much this track is heated up in probably the hour and 15 minutes that we've been practicing, that if you absolutely just do a back-to-back sticker run from the beginning of the practice to now, you're probably, if the car has not been improved, you're going to run about 3 to 4 tenths slower, it just looks like, just based on what I can see on the score monitor. And based on what somebody Twittered me.
You don't even know. GoDaddy.com Chevrolet, driven by another big Michigan Wolverines fan, Brad Keselowski.
Actually, he was over in Ann Arbor at the Michigan Wolverines practice session yesterday.
Coach Rod, Rich Rodriguez.
He was hanging out over there. And, you know, Brad runs a limited schedule. Of course, he's third in the nationwide series point. And I was told this morning he's going to run 5 to 6 more races in 2009. splitting up between the 25 car and the car that he won with at Talladega, the 09 car. But I still think one of the biggest unknowns of 2010 is going to be, where's this guy going to be right here? I do not see him doing the same thing next year that he's doing this year.
He's already said he wants to run the entire schedule. Let's go back to the garage and Bob Dillner.
Well, Clint Boyer is done for this practice session. I just talked to Shane Wilson. He said, you know what, the car is pretty good. You see Clint Boyer out of the car right there, and he's going to talk to Shane Wilson back at the transporter. 8th quick right now for this bunch. And they're okay, but you know what? He's having a tough time trying to get this 33 machine turning in the corner. And just to allude to something that you talked about, Larry Mack, just a second ago, about the disparity between times if you went out in qualifying trim early or late, some of the guys are telling me it's almost a half a second. So that's a pretty big difference on whether you went out early or late. But isn't it better to go out late, being that it's probably more like the temperature we're going to see a little bit later for qualifying?
Actually, no matter what, I want a late draw. I want as late a draw as I possibly could come up with. And of course, these guys draw before this practice session even started, so you know where you're going to go in the qualifying draw. But just look at this 33 car. We actually touched on this a little bit last week at Watkins Glen. I think it's safe to say, maybe not mathematically, but realistically, this is the last probable bullet that Richard Childress Racing that they have to get a car into the chase. And just to prove that that organization is trying to dot every I and cross every T to get this car, they made some changes this week. They took 4 pit crew members from the 07 team and put them on this 33 team to make sure that they have the best 7 guys going across that wall to pit this car for these next 4 races.
You got to do what you got to do, because again, you're running out of time. You're behind, and you need to make it up any way you can, whether it's on the racetrack or on pit road. And you got to, applaud Richard Childress and everybody over at RCR for being willing to do that, because that has got to be the most important mission right now for them, to get at least one car into this chase. So we take a look at Dale Earnhardt Jr. coming off. Looks like he made a qualifying run. He's 12th quickest right now.
Need to mention too, Clint Boyer, 15th in points, Larry. It's about 100 points behind 12th place Matt Kenseth, and he's got 4 races to make it up.
They're way behind, but they're willing to make a deal.
That's exactly right. And we talk about, the draw and how everything's going to work out here today as we take a look at the 36 car, Mike Skinner, who now finds himself at the bottom of the list as far as cars and as far as have been on the racetrack. He's the slowest, 44th, and going to need to make a good effort here. But as far as where you start at this racetrack, Larry, you kind of talked about in our opening, in the last little bit, 7 out of the last 10 races here at Michigan have been won from outside the top 10. So you don't have to start on the pole to win this race as much as you'd like to have that preferred pit stall. Pit road's pretty good for you. And even like with Mark Martin, he won from 32nd back in June. So we don't want to forget that. Take a look at the 9 car. It looks like they've got that engine changed and trying to get it finished up.
Casey Kane blew a motor 1 hour ago. About 10 minutes left in this practice. Stay with us. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice for Michigan is brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. Got 10 minutes left in this practice. David Gilliland, 33rd overall in his Chevrolet.
Now, David did not qualify for the short Watkins Glen. The 71 car actually did, because Andy Lally was in that car. One of the Rolex Trans Am drivers for this particular race team. They actually had David Gilliland in the 2nd car, the 70 car, that did not make the show. Right now he's 33rd quickest, but in good shape as far as the go or go homers. In fact, he just jumped up to 24th quickest in that 71 car.
Denny Hamlin comes to Michigan 5th in points. Right now just 28th overall in his Toyota, and he's working on his 17th lap of practice.
But I know for a fact, talked to Curtis Markham a while ago, his spotter, that they were going to spend most of this practice session working on long race runs.
Denny has 7 Michigan Cup starts, 3 top 10 finishes. They finished 3rd here 8 weeks ago. By the way, we mentioned DW briefly. Tomorrow is his 40th wedding anniversary, so congratulations to Daryl and Stevie Walsh.
Absolutely.
You got that wrong. Congratulations to Stevie for putting up with Daryl for 40 years.
We salute Stevie.
That's
We
right.
salute you.
We bow down and basically pray and give homage to telling you, that's a great relationship right there, and it's been a pleasure to know both of them. Right quick, taking a look here at Carl Edwards in this Ford. I think we need to clarify something. A lot of rumors, a lot of talk going on about the new engine that Ford has been working on, and they were speculating that Ford engine was going to be run here the first race in June, and they elected to keep doing more testing work on it. Then they said, well, we're going to break it back out here this next race here at Michigan, basically Ford's backyard. But upon talking to some of the guys with Roush Yates engines, they have now elected to wait later on. We may not see that engine until Atlanta, just prior to the chase, and they'll start working it in with some teams. A lot of talk about, Bill Elliott, the Wood brothers possibly running it, or a team like maybe Jamie McMurray or David Reagan, who's outside of the chase. So they're very optimistic that it's going to be a better product when it gets here, but they're not quite 100% happy that they can turn that thumb and gun loose here at Michigan or upcoming races and not have to worry about having problems with it. I mean, every time that they run it, they test it, they get more information on it, they find little things. So this is a totally new engine. You can't use any component out of the existing engine in that new engine, Steve. So I mean, everything from the nuts on the valve covers are different. So they want to make sure everything's 100% solid before they set it loose basically in competition. It should make it better for them.
That's actually the same thing, though, that Chevrolet went through and Dodge went through. I mean, you couldn't even think about just taking the old engine out and putting the new engine in. As we watched Bill Elliott in his 21 car, now we know, even though he's a go-homer, he's locked in because he's past champion, and right now he's 30th quickest. But talking about the Fords, and we touched on this earlier, Bill Elliott himself has 7 wins here. The Wood brothers that he's driving for, they have 11 wins here, and Bill actually has 6 poles here. So when you think about it, win-wise, that's 18 races between the two, and we've only run 80 races at this 2-mile racetrack.
Let's go back to Wendy.
And the 11 car of Denny Hamlin just turned off his engine. They're going to push it back into the garage area now. On that last practice run, there might be a problem with the starter. Denny complained to the 11 team that the starter has been making noise. He said, I don't know if it's getting hot now. Mike Ford did ask him to read the volt gauge numbers. They did that when they came in. Chris Woodward, who's the engine tuner, just went under the hood to check some things. It looks like it checked out okay. We'll continue to follow that story. Denny Hamlin has been a hair too free in turn 1 and too tight rolling the center in 3 and 4. Right now, he's P24. Steve?
All right, thank you very much, Wendy. Jimmy Johnson back on the track, 9th overall right now in his Chevrolet.
But I'm getting word that when he was 9th quickest and jumped up there a while ago, that still was not on sticker tires. This is the beginning of what I think will be his very last run of this practice session, considering we only have 5 minutes, so it'll be anxious to see if he can jump up on the charts with this run here.
Remember, he qualified 3rd here in June. He started 3rd.
Well, let's follow Jimmy Johnson. What we think is a qualifying, or as Sterling Marlin would say, a bullseye lap.
Bullseye.
Well, his fast lap right now is a 38.69, which is about 0.6 slower than Ryan Newman. And he runs a 38.72, so he pretty much just mirrored his fast lap there. So I'll be anxious to see what maybe Chad Knaus thinks about that.
Take a break and have the closing moments of Sprint Cup practice from the Michigan International Speedway. Stay with us. Closing moments of this first practice for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series teams on this weekend. Michael Waltrip up to 34th. He just jumped up a little bit there in practice. Now headed down to the apron.
Michael will be making his 49th start here in Michigan. He did sit on the pole back in June of 1991, a best finish of 4th. Michael was not in the 55 car last week. Patrick Compantier was in it. Didn't have quite as good a weekend as they had at Infineon back in June. Patrick finished 33rd. Now Michael back in his car full time for the remaining 14 races.
Larry Paul Menard, 30th overall in his Moen Ford.
And you know, when you look at Yates Racing, Paul Menard and Bobby Labonte, Certainly not the year neither one of those guys have been looking for. Paul Menard still looking for a top 10 finish in 2009. Bobby Labonte only the one at Las Vegas back in the spring. But I think it goes right hand in hand with what Jeff was talking about a while ago. We know this is a contingent of the Roush Fenway group, and they have been struggling for the most part. There's Bobby Labonte in a 96 car. Right now, Bobby 37th quickest. And I just think it's trickling all the way down through all 7 of those 4 teams.
Larry, people have referred to them as satellite teams. I read a funny quote from Tony Stewart this week. And the question was, does it take away anything from your effort because you're a satellite team to Hendrick Motorsports? Meaning you get chassis, engines. Tony Stewart said, no, not so much. My guys just know we're leading the points.
He's having a pretty decent season being a satellite team.
Yeah. All my guys know is we're leading the points.
But you know, it wasn't that long ago when Bobby Labonte was driving that 18 car for Joe Gibbs. He was like Mr. Michigan. 3 wins and 4 poles here, and actually even won a nationwide series race here in 1994.
Kurt Busch in the 2 car. Watching timing and scoring by Brad Keselowski just jumped up to 14th. Kurt Busch right now 28th, but as we said, things can be changing here pretty quickly.
And we talk about all the rainouts that's been going on here lately, and then I don't know if we mentioned the forecast for the next 3 days here. Absolutely perfect. Actually a little on the warm side, but the man right here, Kurt Busch, he has 2 Michigan wins. Remember, 2 years ago he won the race that was run on Tuesday here because they were rained out on Sunday and Monday.
I mentioned the weather because there's a 0% chance of rain through Sunday.
Are you trying to tell me that we don't need to ask Larry about the weather?
That's what I'm saying.
Took him right out of the equation.
Spot on.
Let's go to the garage of Bob Dillner.
Well, you guys have been talking about the 83 of Brian Vickers this entire practice. Well, here's a note or a tidbit, because I know you guys love nuggets. Out of the guys that went to qualifying trim late, he is the fastest. And this 83 car is the brand new car in this stable. I asked them, why bring a brand new car to Michigan? They said, hey, it's the latest and greatest, and we want the best we can get to try to go into the chase. And right now in the past 3 races, Brian Vickers has been the man. He's gained more than 70 points on the chase competitors. He sits 14th right now. This guy could be good here this weekend. He hasn't won in 100 races, Wendy.
Jeff Gordon started this practice session saying it's not very good. He's ending this practice session with a bad vibration. Steve Letardis, crew chief, said, is that vibration in the wheel or in the shifter? Jeff said is definitely in the wheel. So they're going to continue to work on that car between these practice sessions. Also wanted to add on the 11 before we sign off that they did realize what the problem was. The AC fan was left on in that car. So it drains the battery, and it took a little bit longer, a little bit slower to crank, which was the problem they figured out on the 11. Steve?
Wendy, looking at timing and scoring, 26 drivers ran a sub 39-second lap, and the rest of the other drivers under 39 or under 40 seconds in the 39-second category.
I would not bet against that 83 car. He has sat on the last 2 poles here a year ago and back in June. He has 5 poles in 2009. And remember what we said? He's one of the guys that goes late in the session.
That's going to make a big difference right there. And right now for the 9 car, they've got to finish up getting this engine change made, get ready for going qualifying. A little bit later on here today on speed. And Steve, I'll tell you right now, Vickers may be a good pick. I like Juan Pablo Montoya. I think he's got a pretty fast hot rod.
So Ryan Newman, Joey Logano the quickest. Tony Stewart late in the weeds. We'll find out qualifying at 3:40 Eastern here on Speed. We'll step aside right now and go to John Roberts at the speed stage.
Speaking of stepping,